Welcome to the JCPS MTSS training on the Classroom Systems Toolkit with a focus on the application, the Ignoring Game. I am Melissa Loxton, MTSS Engagement Resource Teacher with Zone 3.
And I'm Kelly Hagan, MTSS Engagement Resource Teacher with the Middle School Zone.
Please take a moment to write down or type the case-sensitive bit.ly into your web browser. This will allow you to access the slide deck and all the links for future reference. These are the components of MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support. As you can see, MTSS provides multiple levels of support for all learners and aligns resources and support with our district's 6 systems for students and for teachers who deliver and support instruction. MTSS addresses academic, social, emotional, and behavioral development. It focuses on overall school improvement that is sustainable. JCPS has 3 departments within MTSS, as shown on this concept map. MTSS Academics, directed by Donna Lawson, supports schools by ensuring teachers are providing all students with academic supports, with a focus on Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions and support. MTSS Behavior Department, directed by Sandra Hensel, supports schools in implementing school-wide behavior systems and frameworks, including positive behavior interventions and supports, or PBIS, and the Behavior Support Systems Model, which is an alignment of PBIS and restorative practices. Our department is MTSS Engagement, directed by Dr. Naomi Brahim. The goal of the MTSS Engagement Department is to increase student achievement by equipping teachers with high-yield pedagogical practices to maximize student engagement. 6 MTSS toolkits were created to provide resources for Tier 1 instructional practices to increase student engagement, reduce student behaviors, and to decrease disproportionality. Here are the 6 MTSS toolkits. By clicking the toolkit image, you will access the MTSS department webpage and each toolkit. Classroom systems that support student behavior use academic and behavior data to put short and long-term supports in place to help students be successful. When we think about student-teacher relationships, we are referring to an aspect of classroom systems designed to help students strengthen their sense of belonging. This toolkit is broken down into 3 high-yield practices defined by John Hattie as practices teachers can use to move learning forward. All 3 are needed to apply the application, the Ignoring Game. It is important that you familiarize yourself with these practices prior to using this application. The first high-yield practice is student-teacher relationships. Any educator is said to have good student-teacher relationship when the degree of interactions between themselves and the student end positively. This is easily seen in classrooms with positive environments and few problem behaviors. Remember, the bulk of the work is on the teacher to cultivate and maintain this positive relationship. The next high-yield practice is classroom management. In this practice, teachers set roles and expectations, sometimes with the aid of students, and then use positive strategies to have students adhere with the roles. These roles should be reasonable based on grade level, and the outcomes of teacher and student interactions should be positive. Having good classroom management is a major indicator of student success. The third high-yield practice involves teacher expectations of performance. Teachers who believe that their students can succeed have a great impact not only on academic success, but behavioral success as well. In order to have high expectations, teachers should voice these independently of the school-wide expectations, emphasize growth and progress in their expectations, regularly communicate these expectations, give students reasonable challenges, Encourage the student that they can be successful, and give regular feedback on student progress. Teacher expectations can be applied to the whole class, or if necessary, to individual students after being modified for their needs. So what is the ignoring game? Student attention to misbehavior is both a distraction from instruction and a spotlight for a student who is misbehaving. This is where the ignoring game is beneficial and helpful. The ignoring game is a simple strategy for teaching students to remove their attention from misbehavior on command. Before we dive into more specifics of the ignoring game, let's talk about tiered or layered supports. Notice the graphic on the slide showing the various levels of support, starting with Tier 1 for all students being the foundation. Tier 2 supports layered on top and provided in addition to Tier 1 for a small percentage of students, with Tier 3 layered on both of these and provided for an even smaller percentage of students. Our focus for today's training, the ignoring game, is considered a Tier 2 support or intervention. It should be considered with a small percentage of students as needed that need further support after trying Tier 1 strategies or interventions. Successful use of this application is when attention is removed from misbehaviors by ignoring the distraction and keeping the focus on the instruction. In today's training, we will understand the components of ignoring student misbehaviors. You will determine which student misbehaviors should be ignored and which should not. As we mentioned before, the ignoring game is used as a Tier 2 intervention. It's a strategy used to essentially ignore unwanted behavior. Oftentimes, our go-to as teachers when juggling a room full of students is to instantly address any and all problem behavior in order to keep control and order of our classrooms. But why is ignoring misbehavior at times the better solution? There are instances that addressing these behaviors is simply giving students the attention or what they initially wanted when they chose that misbehavior and reinforcing the undesired behaviors you don't want. Not giving attention to misbehavior can help teach kids to seek attention in the more appropriate ways. It reduces misbehaviors, off-task students, disruptions, outbursts, etc., and it decreases lost instruction time. When is the time to ignore the misbehavior? When a student is acting out, disruptive, off-task, talking, exhibiting outbursts, etc. When students seek attention in negative ways, or when they are off-task, talking out of turn, making noises, drawing attention to themselves. As you can see, the key to ignoring is during the act. Finally, and most importantly, to make the ignoring game work most efficiently is know how to ignore misbehaviors. Remember, this is a Tier 2 intervention strategy. You need to know your students well and have built solid relationships with each of them before truly knowing which applications will work best at any given time. This may not work best with all students at all times, and you would never use this if a student is in danger to others or themselves. However, with students that are not posing a danger to themselves or others, you simply ignore their behaviors and continue instruction without stopping or giving them any special attention. Be prepared for students to intensify their efforts to get your attention at first, when you first begin to ignore them. But do not give in too easily with this intervention. Rather, outlast the student. When the student does something positive, correct, or on task, praise them and give them attention. Make a point to praise other students in the class who are exhibiting on task and correct behaviors, including what they are doing right in the praise, like, "Nice job sitting up straight in your chair, Edgar," or You were very quiet and listened to the directions very well, Shauna. Finally, find other ways to give the disruptive student attention and praise for correct behaviors. To effectively implement the positive ignoring game, here are some key steps. Determine the length of time that students must ignore before receiving the reinforcer. Teach ignoring game to students. When ignoring is called for, announce loudly to all that the ignoring game is in effect. Reinforce all students who are ignoring the inappropriate behavior. When students fail to properly ignore, correction is in order. Monitor correct use of ignoring and effect on misbehaving students. And last, fade the procedure over time to become more natural.
So let's practice. On the next screen, several example misbehaviors will appear. As each misbehavior comes up on the screen, think about if you would use this behavior in the ignoring game or address the behavior every time. Let's test our knowledge. Pencil tapping. Profanity. Whispering to a classmate. Sleeping. Tantrums. Doing beats on a desk. Being out of their seat. Backtalk. Calling out. And finally, hitting another student. Like any new strategy, there are things to consider before implementing the classroom. The ignoring game requires effective modeling and practicing so that students can be provided with immediate feedback as they learn to properly ignore the strategy that can be faded away over time. It should only be used as a support to stop misbehaviors long term. When implementing new strategies into the classroom, one should always consider different student backgrounds and the overall classroom culture. Teachers that approach their behavior management systems through a lens of equity remove the barriers for learning such that a class community is established where everyone plays an important role in the learning that occurs. When implementing interventions for students with exceptional needs, be sure to first reference their IEP to ensure the interventions in place are being followed. Also, look into starting a functional behavioral assessment, or an FBA, to collect data on when the behavior occurs, the antecedent, what the behavior is, and what the consequences for the behavior will be. Students need to be empowered to be more independent learners and take an active role in their learning process. With the ignoring game, teachers give students the opportunity to monitor their own behavior in order to receive a reward with their peers by ignoring misbehaviors. When structures that promote learners to have an active role in their learning process, collaboration and engagement become the result. Use the following link to access the Behavior Intervention Grid, which provides multiple interventions for various misbehaviors experienced in the classroom. Here are additional resources that will provide more information on the ignoring game. Thank you for joining us to learn more about using the ignoring game. If you would like more information about the MTSS toolkits and other high-yield practices, please visit our department website.